Are you the kind of person who loves to know the intricacies in every weapon? Or do you like to stare at clouds to see if you can notice a pattern or image, like a happy Rorschach test? Then
this is the video for you. This is our guide to help you learn and control the recoil patterns in Apex Legends.
The first shotgun we'll look at is the EVA 8. This gun fires 9 pellets with every shot, which spread out in 3 lines of 3. The top and bottom lines are slightly arched, giving the spread pattern a circular shape.
This makes the gun come into its own when hitting the center of your targets, as you'll be making each of those pellets really count. This spread stays the same size regardless of whether you're firing from the hip or ADSing.
Up next is the Mozambique. 3 is the magic number here, with 3 bullets per magazine, each firing 3 shells apiece in all of its meme-ified glory.
Whilst hip firing, the shells are fairly spread out, with 1 hitting each of the lines of your hipfire crosshairs. This means that if hipfire is your only option, make sure you're as close as possible, otherwise you might think you're fighting some sort of bullet-dodging ninja.
To help close the distance, aim down sights with the Mozambique as it clusters the shots closer together, ultimately rewarding accuracy. The star of the shotguns is the Peacekeeper. This monster fires 11 shells per shot expended from its 6-round magazine. Considering it's called a scatter gun, the spread pattern for the Peacekeeper is rather precise, with every shot making a reliable 5-pointed star shape. Some say if you look up at the night sky, you'll be able to see it.
This gun rewards accuracy, so if you can land every shell, you will do big damage. Aiming down sights does not change the spread, but it is the only shotgun that can add a precision choke. This will center the shells and turn it into a veritable death ray, as every shot delivers extreme pain after charging up.
The blue glow also makes it look rather pretty. Badass, I meant badass.
Last across the line, we're finishing up shotguns with the legendary Mastiff.
This supply drop only shotgun is the king in terms of raw, lethal power. The fact that its spread is extremely simple doesn't hurt either. In your mind, imagine a line. Imagine that line has been trained by Thanos and John Wick from an early age. Now imagine it is burning through enemy armor and health with 8 shells of vengeance. That's pretty much the Mastiff in a nutshell.
Just remember to aim down sights with this gun, no matter how briefly, as it tightens the spread, making the pattern a shorter line and clumping the damage up even more.
The RE45, the only machine gun pistol in Apex Legends. The RE45 recoils upwards then angles off to the right. Think of the shape as a fishing hook with a frozen worm attached to it. From the hip, the recoil pattern is very similar, but it goes to the right sooner, and it's less of a hook shape and more straight.
The interesting thing is that with the barrel stabilizer on the RE45, the recoil is much smaller for ADS and hip fire, meaning it still does go to the right, but in a smaller motion.
To maintain damage with this weapon without fighting the recoil, we recommend you aim around the left part of your opponent's body before unloading the entire clip. The P2020 laughs in the face of the bad press the Mozambique gets, also while forgetting death from the P2020 is like dying from 1,000 cuts.
This pistol is single shot, but if fired in quick succession, it will gain a recoil. This pattern is up and to the left slightly.
Think of it as trying to draw a straight line with a ruler while in a particularly rickety boat. This is also the same for hip firing as well.
The Wingman is an incredible pistol. The Wingman is a highlight reel's dream. The first shot using the Wingman is always accurate, but then it starts to group diagonally upwards to the right as you begin to fire more frequently. Have you got a weird pattern description for this one?
No.
Great.
Wondering what the recoil pattern for this rapid-firing devil gun is? Well, that's ironic considering the recoil pattern strongly resembles a question mark. I love knowing this because the R301 tends to be the answer to a lot of my DPS problems.
But what about hip firing? Well, it's a little bit more erratic as it becomes more of a spray.
Interestingly, if you do dot to dot with this pattern, it will look like a damaged kite.
I hate the fact that you're actually kind of right.
I know.
This 3-round burst fire AR is odd. Its burst fire mode being closer to the R301's recoil pattern in the sense that it is like a small question mark. whereas its single-fire recoil more closely resembles an upward snaking pattern.
The best place to aim with the Hemlock for an increased chance of hitting your target with all of your bullets would be center mass. You should be able to do hefty body damage with 1 or 2 bullets hitting your enemy's bottom lip. The Flatline has one of the more unconventional recoil patterns of the ARs. It kind of looks like one edge of a vase, or vase.
Single shot is a lot simpler, giving you a smoother diagonal up and to the left.
The Havoc is a bit of a beast to handle when you hold down the trigger. The recoil pattern is straight up and can be difficult to fight, so I recommend aiming at the belly button area when initially firing, as that sets up potential headshot damage thanks to the recoil.
The Devotion is one of the harder recoil patterns to identify. The normal tactic of dumping a magazine of ammo into a wall and then looking at the artwork you've made doesn't really work, as after a full 44 round magazine, half the pattern disappears. But never fear, after a bit of stitching we've put it together. It's a large sweeping curve to the left before it bounces diagonally back across to the right.
It's hard to describe the Spitfire's recoil pattern, but we're gonna give it a go anyway. It's kind of like a big-nosed man in pain, possibly from stepping on a plug or finding 2 Mozambiques in hot spots. It goes up to the left just a touch, then back across to the right ever so slightly, before just zigzagging everywhere. I know it's complicated, but the velocity isn't too violent, and with a bit of practice you can get it down.
When firing the G7 Scout constantly, the gun goes slightly up to the left and then returns to a purely vertical pattern with a slight twitch left again before the magazine ends.
Due to the G7 being a DMR with recoil, I suggest taking a little bit of time to readjust after every 3 shots. It pays to take your time with this weapon if the situation allows you. The longbow will be a quick and easy one to remember. The recoil returns to the center before you can take the next shot, so it's always accurate. It's almost like a pure sniper rifle.
Funny that. Unlike the longbow, the triple take is an unconventional sniper, as it fires 3 horizontal bullets every pull of the trigger. When fired fast, the recoil stays mostly central, with the 3rd and 4th shots deviating slightly to the left.
Take this deviation into account when firing at a moving target. If they're moving left, don't aim ahead as much when taking into account bullet trajectory. And if they're moving right, aim a little closer to the enemy.
Because of the bolt pullback after every shot when using the Kraber, there is no recoil.
But the scope does shake when you fire it, which can either add to the feeling of devastation when you hit someone, or make you feel like the Kraber is laughing at you when you miss. My favourite weapon in the game, the R99 recoil pattern, is a snaking pattern to the right first, then to the left before curling right to finish. A beautiful pattern for a beautiful gun. And what about when firing from the hip? It's pretty much the same, just a little bit more spread out. It's a simple downwards pull to control this, but it can be a bit vicious, so take some time to practice as a way of mastering it.
An unsung hero, the alternator is a great alternative to your favorite short to mid-range weapon. The recoil pattern is upwards and to the right, so maybe aim initially to the torso before letting the gun do its thing.
I really like the hip fire, as it's a bit of a monster. It will go upwards before bunching up, and it looks like a capital T. And finally, we end on Geo's wrestling name, the Prowler. When you are aiming down sights, the pattern recoil is upwards, followed by a tight circling curve that starts to the left before making its way back to the center.
Do we have a final weird interpretation on what that one looks like?
We sure do. It looks a lot like a paranoid balloon on a string looking at you from behind a wall.
Nice. Watch for the information, subscribe for the insanity.
It's probably worth noting that the best way at getting better at controlling all the varied recoil patterns we've spoken about today is practice. If you're anything like me, you blitz through the training arena, desperate to get stuck into Kings Canyon. However, if you want to truly learn all your recoil patterns, you want to take a few trips back here. The big square target makes great recoil practice at various ranges and allows you to get used to countering the recoil of the various guns in Apex Legends. Yes, there's no attachments, but let's be honest, if you can manage the Devotion's recoil whilst it's trying to tear your arms out their sockets, you'll probably be just fine in Kings Canyon. So that was today's Recoil pattern video. Did you find it helpful, or do you have your own interpretation of the patterns? Join the madness by saying so in the comment section below.
Talking about joining, if you had fun, subscribe to the channel as we release regular videos. Thanks for watching and goodbye.